Let's tackle some more of your tough questions. Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers.
We're therapists.
And we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin. Hey, Tyler, how's it going?
I'm doing all right. I feel like my face is going to fall off right now because I'm so sunburned. But other than that, doing great.
Were you out in the sun or what?
We actually spent the weekend with 16 of our group clients decided to come along. We went on a Wind Rivers trip.
Dang.
And we went backpacking up in the Wind Rivers, and I forgot my sunscreen. So we were up at about 12,000 feet with no sunscreen for 2 days. So I came home with just like a pure, just completely fried. But man, it was a phenomenal experience. I want to give a shout out to all of those men that went. I love every one of you guys, even more than I did when we left. To see you guys we did some activities, a couple of therapeutic things, and just, but really it was just a time for some real brotherhood. It was awesome and well worth the sunburn.
Did you catch some fish?
So the fishing was, we caught a ton of fish. They were tiny and it took a while to figure them out, but yeah, and I love that country. You get up in there and you get so high up into those mountains where it's like you're just around sheer rock faces and you're standing like these lakes are just basically holes in the ground from where glaciers have melted, and just beautiful, amazing country. You can't help but feel God when you're in that kind of country. And when you go with like-minded people, a group of men who also want to live the same principles, and you pair that up with the power of that nature, it's a pretty potent experience.
And you're jumping the gun on Rising Sun.
So
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, we kind of did. It was basically like a really small taste of the Rising Sun retreat.
Nice.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really good.
Cool.
So
yeah, good work. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, should we dive into these questions?
Yeah, let's do it, man. We've
gotten a lot of good questions.
Some really good ones. We don't often get to them because we usually try to take callers over, prioritize those, but we have several on the list that are really good, and we're going to try to get to a few of them today.
Yep. Should I start?
Yeah, go with it.
Okay. So this question, it says, my husband has recently come clean to me about his porn addiction. Among other things he's done to betray my trust, such as chatting with women, trading pics, looking for local women to hook up with, watching any and every TikTok video with women being vulgar. He only came clean because I caught him so many times, and I finally had enough and threatened to leave if he didn't stop lying to me about it. I know there's so much more that I don't know, but he swears he never met any of the women and has never physically cheated on me. I don't feel like we've had a full D-day because he avoids some of my questions by one-word answers or changing the subject. So I still have many questions. He does want to recover, but is too embarrassed to talk to anyone or join groups because he's afraid our family will find out. I'm also dealing with betrayal trauma, but he doesn't want me to tell anyone. How can I help either of us without telling anyone?
Ooh, just that's a lot. That's a lot to take in and a lot to hold when you find this kind of stuff out. And so basically, a different way of asking this question is, and again, I'm maybe sounding a little sarcastic, is my husband has a massive problem that is causing a lot of damage to himself and to everybody else. And he wants to make sure that we protect all of that so that he can continue his patterns.
Yes, exactly. Now, it's interesting. Why did you change it?
well, because I just want a different perspective on it to say, wait a second, let's keep doing everything that we've always done so that we can make something different. And that doesn't work. Like your husband is basically saying, I need you to not get help because my ego is more important than you or me getting better.
She said something in there that was completely, I believe, well, I can't say because I don't know for sure, but it seems completely untrue, which is he wants to recover. That
Well,
doesn't seem,
it seems that way.
it seems very untrue. And because what do we know about recovery, Tyler?
Well, I think what's happening here is he probably does deep inside feel like he wants to get better. He just wants to get better on his terms. It's like the little red hen. He wants the bread. He just doesn't want to go plant the wheat, mill the wheat, make the flour, bake the bread. He doesn't want to do what it takes to have the bread. He just wants the bread.
The thing about it is it's not about the bread that's going to get him into recovery. It's about doing what it takes.
That's the part of it. That's getting into recovery.
There's no way around it. There's no way around that. Coming forward and getting honest and taking what's hidden in the dark and bringing it into the light, that has to happen for recovery to take place. Has to. He's still like from listening to this question, it would be really good for her to find a good therapist who understands disclosure and go through a disclosure process with him.
Yes.
She doesn't know what she doesn't know. One word answers. He's still very much in protection mode. And who knows about acting out behaviors, could very well just be going on right now. So to ask for a formal disclosure, to the reality is to work recovery, Tyler, there's all kinds of opportunities, right? There's retreats, groups, individual therapy, books to read, podcasts to listen to. There's all kinds of stuff, 12 steps, like tons of stuff. But guess what? You can read all the books in your basement that you want or listen to all the podcasts. You have to eventually show your face. You have to.
This addiction is so laced in hiding, inauthenticity, and secrecy that you can't get better without confronting those things.
Yes.
So like you said, Brannon, yeah, you can go, obviously, like, listen to this podcast, read a book. Great. You're going to get some education, but eventually, if you want to actually change your life, you're going to have to confront those things. And there's different ways to do it, like you said, but principally speaking, you're going to have to come out of hiding. You're going to have to learn how to take accountability for your own actions. You're going to have to learn how to then try to make repairs for the ways that you can, for the actions that you've taken in the past. And then you're going to have to learn how to love yourself through all of this. And that's what I'm hearing through this, is that she's got a partner who feels so unlovable and so afraid of being exposed to the people that care about him that he's willing to take everybody down with him to keep the secrets.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that piece will never allow them to have the marriage that they want, or allow her to have the husband she wants, because she wants a husband, if she's like most women, who has the strength to cherish and honor her. And right now he's hiding behind her.
She knows
at her expense.
Well, she knows that they can't do this work in secrecy. She knows that.
Yeah.
So that's her question. And ultimately, no, you can't do this work in secrecy. Patrick Carnes, in all of his research on sex addiction, discovered that someone struggling with a sex addiction has 4 beliefs that they believe, like they really believe. And you can hear in these beliefs the work that needs to be done to overcome these beliefs. And, a couple of the beliefs, I'll start with the 2 that I think he really needs to hear. Nobody will love me as I am. So if you're saying, okay, now I have this vulnerable thing, I got caught, but now you need to help me hide, we're feeding that belief that's driving the addiction. Nobody will love me as I am. Another belief, my needs can't get met by others. So if I isolate and I don't reach out and I don't show my face and I don't rely on help from others, I'm perpetuating that belief. My needs can't get met by others. I'm isolated. I'm isolated, alone, in secrecy. Those are the ingredients for addiction, not for recovery.
Yes,
Right?
exactly. And then that forms another belief around those beliefs that then says, because I'm responsible to meet my needs, sex becomes my biggest need in this
Sex
case.
is my greatest need. That's another one.
The sex is now being used to try to fill the void of the first belief, which is I'm not lovable. But now I'm going to do it in secret. I'm going to do it under hiding and without vulnerability, and somehow I'm going to expect to fill the void, and it just never works
It's a vicious cycle. It goes on and on and on until you bring it up to the light
until it comes above the surface. And once
with
it's above the
humility.
surface, yeah,
And then you realize I'm loved even with all my mess. I can look my family in the eye and be like, you know what? Yeah, I've screwed up, but like God loves me still. Someone loves me still. Right? That's what you need to find out.
yeah. And that's the leap of faith, so to speak, that has to take place for you to get better, actually.
Yep.
And it goes along with, and this is the hard part, because when you have an addiction, you get used to making sure that you're always in control, because then you can protect yourself from being hurt. And part of the recovery process is surrender and letting go. Like, I'm giving my will over to the care of God, and I'm going to surrender to whatever it is, those principles that you hear on this show all the time, or the principles of the program that I'm working, or and so, yeah, it's a great question. I can hear how she's probably feeling really stuck and frustrated, because
Because she knows.
she's not getting the support she needs either.
She knows
And
that's not recovery.
what I would say to her is, it's okay for her to have her own boundaries and to go to him. And of course, she's going to be respectful and not want to just be vindictive, but she's going to have to go to him and say, there are certain people that I'm going to reach out to because I need my help, and this is my story too. And I can tell you who I'm going to talk to, but I'm going to do that because I need
Yeah.
to for myself.
Yep.
And I think the next step along with that would be to find a good therapist and actually start the process of working a full disclosure, because you guys really won't get better without those two things starting to
Yeah.
happen.
Yep.
It's funny, Brandon, too, with this, like, I see this sometimes, and I'm not advocating this per se, but there, on occasion, I don't know if this is true. I'd love to get your take on this. Sometimes I have a client who, by nature of how the disclosure happens, they literally have no place to hide because it goes public. Like what a client that's like all of a sudden in a high profile case that goes all over the local news or whatever.
Right.
And everybody knows their name, everybody knows what they did, and they think their life is over. And then they end up in your office and they're like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know. Like, I can't even go on. Right. In some ways, I sometimes feel like those clients that I get, they're offered the gift of not even having to decide whether or not to hide.
You're right.
Because now all of a sudden it's already in the light. There is no manipulation of certain relationships. There's no like, hey, I got to hide it from this person, but tell this person. And what it does is it forces them into a stark place of reality. And then they realize that life's going to go on. They realize that they are still lovable. They start to connect with the right kinds of people because they're not afraid to hide anymore.
Yeah.
And then because they're not spending all their time and their energy manipulating how people see them, they do the right kind of work and they create a life that's worth living. And then they go, man, like, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yep.
I don't know if you run into that or not, Brannon, but I see that sometimes, and it's like, man, maybe the biggest gift this woman could do is for her husband is to go and find the people she needs to get support from and say, hey, here's what's going on, and he can handle it because it's his actions that he's got to deal with anyway. It's part of the consequence.
I'm just thinking about, and I think we brought this up before, but this whole, when I jumped up on the monkey bars in third grade and Lynn came over and pantsed me.
Oh man.
And like in front of everyone on the playground, like down to my ankles. And
you were hanging on the monkey bars.
Yeah, and Dad had got those underwear from South Africa.
From South Africa, the South African underwear.
They had like drafts on them and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm hanging on the monkey bars. You're telling me Lynn offered me a gift that day?
I remember you actually came home and described it, that like you were hanging on the monkey bars and you were so mortified because when he pantsed you, it's like the shorts came down, but then the African underwear sort of like shimmied down.
Trickled
It
down.
it was like slow motion. So there you are hanging in all your glory in the playground as a young child. Like, how traumatizing is that? Right?
You're telling me Lynn offered me a gift. Thank you, Lynn.
Oh man, Lynn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you've come to a conclusion on what the gift was yet, Brannon, for yourself. But
hey, well, let's use the analogy. So to your point, embarrassing, no third grader wants that to happen.
Scary.
But I think the important point is realizing I was still alive, realizing I was still okay. Something scary. I can be exposed. I can be seen. And I can move forward with my life and my day. And within a couple days, a couple kids were like bullying me and laughing and stuff. But like everyone forgot and it was on with life,
Yeah, it was on to the next incident of whatever happened on the playground.
Yeah. So, but in the moment, it felt overwhelming, like the last thing on earth that I ever wanted to happen. And the reality is it wasn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I'd go a step further with this situation, with this question, and I would just say to both of them, you don't know it yet because fear is standing in the way and you can't see the light on the other side, but there is life. There is actual real life on the other side of hiding.
Yeah.
And if you'll step through that, you can find that you'll go through the discomfort and the embarrassment and the fear, but there is real life. And the life that you deserve and the life you want isn't a life in the dark.
I was working with a client years ago, and he was holding a horrible secret, terrible secret, and we were trying to work as a couple, and the relationship kept getting just worse and worse and terrible and awful, and finally the secret came out. He was kind of forced into bringing some things to light. And what happened was interesting. Is to her it was a big relief. To him, he felt a lot of shame, and they actually ended up divorced. Not as a result of the secret coming out, but as a result of the hell they've been living in for so long. And so I guess my point is whatever has happened has happened. Now you have a choice to create suffering by living in the dark or facing the pain of the reality of what's happened. So why take on and create so much more horrible consequences in your life versus facing the reality and facing the pain?
That is the best way. You're right. Yeah. So I think we probably beat the dead horse enough. I think they probably both know where we stand on this one.
Thanks again, Lynn.
That's probably the first time you've ever said thanks to Lynn for
this
that.
Is so healing.
Yeah, you're getting your own therapy right now.
Yeah, wow, yeah. Thank you. Oh no! Also, I'm thinking of is giraffe underwear right now. So.
I
think there was a rhino too. Like
there was Afrikaans underwear. I remember. Yeah, there were different like scenes, and they didn't quite fit properly, but they
had no elastic on them. Just imagine underwear with no elastic, just like hanging in there. Like
it's like the primitive loincloth again.
I guess. I don't know what Dad was doing.
Yeah. He probably thought it was cool because he was sharing like part of the culture.
Yeah, like rhinos and giraffes and stuff.
Yeah, he spent his time in Africa. He's spent a little bit of time there, and he's trying to let us get a taste of that.
Well, thank you, Dad. See, so look how healing. Look how healing this is.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into this one. I noticed we have several, but I noticed you had another one highlighted, so I'll just read the one you had highlighted. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. My husband has been struggling with porn and masturbation since he was about 11. I also struggled with it as well growing up, but that's another story. I've been on podcasts and doing very well with this area. Betrayal trauma hit me hard, even though I knew about his addiction going into our marriage, though he was never honest about the extent of it. We had a full therapeutic disclosure just over a year after we got married. That helped so much. I set boundaries and also told him my bottom lines and deal breakers. I will only stay in a marriage with someone who is in active recovery. Active recovery means actively working on himself and trying to get better. I found out today that he's been white knuckling for a while. He's he's doing filters. What does it say? He's though he's doing filters. I'm sorry, himself, and we have though he's doing filters himself, and we have a good system for daily accountability with me. We both like. Do I bring it up and say I don't like this and that he needs to figure it out, or I'm not interested in staying, or do I just wait and pray he chooses active recovery? 38 weeks pregnant, concerned wife.
Um, there's a lot to say here. Um, he's white knuckling. What does that mean?
Yeah, what's the difference? I guess that's what I'm wondering between the difference between active recovery and white knuckling. Because if he's still doing all of the active recovery stuff, if he's, going to his meetings or doing his assignments or working on things, on one hand, like if you're actually working recovery, there will be periods of time where, for whatever reason, whether it's brought on by circumstance or it just hits you like a ton of bricks, you will get triggered and want to act out. And sometimes even active recovery includes portions of skillful white knuckling. And so if that's happening, that's different than I'm not doing any recovery work and I'm just praying that I stay sober.
Yeah, I wonder, Tyler, if this, what's kind of going through my mind is the episode we did about shooting at the wrong target. um, because what I'm hearing is lacking is some good, healthy trust and polarity in that relationship with the masculine and the feminine. Like what is actual recovery? She wants a man who's working recovery. And something she said there, and this is probably me, yeah, we have a check-in system that works for both of us. I wonder about that.
I know that that's always a hot topic for you because of
Yeah.
things in the past too. So,
Well, but the reason why I wonder about it is like the check-in system. Like, what are they checking in about? Are they connecting on an emotional level? Are they being open and honest? Or is it like, hey, let me tell you exactly how I'm being sober. Let me tell you why I'm a good boy. And that screams to me of weak masculinity, which will never, ever build safety and trust in that relationship. And
well, because it's not actual real active recovery.
Because it's the opposite of recovery, of actual recovery. So those are just some of the things going off in my mind as you're reading through that.
Yeah, and maybe to come back around to some of that question, then is basically, it sounds like she's trying to do her work to say, hey, I do want to be actively involved in working this recovery. And on one hand, and maybe this is the question you're asking back to her, is you're saying that you want full active recovery, but it seems like the target keeps coming back around to the sobriety piece only.
Does she want recovery or does she want control?
Yeah, well, and control would mean safety theoretically, right?
Well, but it doesn't lead her trying to control doesn't lead.
No, it never does. But that's the tendency where people tend to go, because when you get hurt, that's what you want to do, right?
Right.
I mean, she's 38 weeks pregnant, concerned wife. She loves her husband. She's got a lot going on in her life, and so there would be a tendency to say, okay, I'm going to make sure that there's quote recovery happening, meaning sobriety. And so just make sure, what you're saying, Brannon, is make sure that whatever you guys are doing is actually towards the end goal of what you actually want, and don't mistake that for sobriety alone.
Absolutely. And don't get caught up in cycles of fear-based, the fear cycle and codependent type behavior, which will undermine actual real recovery.
Yeah. I think let's go back really quickly to that kind of check-in thing. It sounds like they have a daily accountability thing they both like. I would hope that the daily accountability isn't the only thing that's being checked in on.
Yeah, I could go off.
I know.
I think just having it is a problem. just
Explain
having a
explain
daily,
that, because a lot of people think that that's a way to like help the process move forward.
yeah, like trust is built on knowing that somebody's going to be honest with you, not somebody forcing themselves to tattletale on themselves to you. And so trust is built when it's like, oh, like we don't need to check in, but I know that you'll disclose things or be honest with me if you need to. Um, and so to set up that type of check-in, just it undermines actual trust building. There has to be vulnerability, Tyler. In order for trust to happen, there has to be a space of vulnerability. And what the question she's really asking that I hear is he a man that can stand on his own 2 feet? Is he a man who knows himself? So if I'm checking in every day to see like, like what's going on, like, and he's coming as weak as can be to that, and like telling on himself, that's not a man that stands on his own 2 feet. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think that's the challenge, and this is where I think this person who submitted the question is actually speaking for a lot of people that we work with, because
Yeah.
that's where you get stuck at is if that's true, some version of what you just said is, I want to know if my husband is a man who is authentically working his own recovery and as a man who can stand on his own 2 feet, because that would feel safe to me if I knew he was willingly doing that work on his own. But in order to make sure that that's happening, because he hasn't done that in the past, we're going to institute all of these things that would then make him do these things. But then I'm still sitting here wondering, is this active recovery?
You'll never know if he has integrity.
Right. So there's like this, there's a space where he has to learn how to lean in, because he's lived a life probably inevitably where he hasn't been willingly coming forward and saying, hey, this is me, this is what's going on, and this is what's happening. So he has to learn that skill, and there needs to be some level of practice inside of that. But at the end of the day, what she needs is to know he's choosing to do that willingly, because that's the kind of man he wants to be. And
Yeah.
and if we're checking in on sobriety today only, you're actually missing all of that other stuff. Maybe the only thing you're getting is that he willingly came to the check-in, but there's still that doubt in your mind of like, but would he do this anyway?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
so when you look at the white knuckling part of it only, what I hear is like, if he's staying sober but he isn't coming to you and having open discussions with you, or if he isn't willingly choosing to go to his 12-step group and he's not actively working on one of the steps in the 12 steps, or he's not actively focusing on one of the assignments in his groups, or he's not choosing to make phone calls to people.
We're living a life on the edge with purpose and integrity, right? Like if he's not doing those things, then he's not working recovery. Now he might be half debating and not quite, doing things that he has to disclose to you that, he broke a boundary.
But that's not recovery.
That's the opposite of recovery.
Yeah.
It's the opposite. Yet we call it recovery and blah, blah, blah. And it's the opposite of recovery.
Yeah. No, one more thing to her question. She's got this boundary that says, I'm only staying if there is active recovery. She doesn't dictate to him what active recovery is, but she does check in with herself around,
She'll feel it.
yeah, do I feel like there's actual authentic action being taken place towards a better person and a better life? And if I don't feel like that, regardless of whether or not he's sober or not, that's when I'm going to then follow through on protecting that value that I have in myself and taking some time or some space, whether that's permanent or not, even if it's short term, to say, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's going on for me. I don't know if you're acting out or not. It doesn't really matter if you're acting out or not. What it feels like is it feels like there's just this hollow husk or shell of an active pursuit of recovery. And because of that, it's causing me to feel a little bit antsy. And because I feel antsy, I can't keep my mind right. And so I need some time and some space to figure this out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So you can still set your boundaries. Like either way, keep your boundaries, but just make sure your boundaries are based on your values and not controlling his recovery.
Yes, exactly. So, well, Tyler, these are good questions again. So
I know we got a few others. We always have goals to get to like 5 or 6 of them, and then we always end up getting through like 2.
yeah, yeah, these are good questions, and I kind of like the questions because we can, we don't have to do our therapist thing as much, where we kind of like help them come to we can just like blast away.
I know. In some ways, there might be a real benefit to the people who are submitting these questions, because it's like they're getting just like the unfiltered sort of like, well, here's our opinion on it.
But it might just be lambasted, like, whoa, like, yeah, that was drinking through the fire hose of that.
Yeah, maybe it's more than I wanted.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, we do appreciate the questions that do come through.
Yep. All right, Tyler, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, thank you for being here with us. We love you guys. We love your feedback. Please give it to us in any platform or way that you can. If you have questions, therapybros.com is the place to go with your own questions. We would love to see you personally on the show with us and have a conversation with us. And until next time, keep on keeping on.